If you're anything like me, you're always checking out for news of movies that have been confirmed or are going into production, and in fact, did you see that recently, 28 years later, is being seriously touted by writer Alex Garland and director Danny Boyle? Did you? Did you? Well, I'm excited about that, but I'm excited about the other movies that are on this list as well. With that in mind, I'm Sean Ferrick for What Culture Horror, and here are 10 horror movies that are finally happening. Number 10, Drag Me to Hell 2. It's been almost an entire 15 years since Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell hit screens and basically served as an apology for Raimi's prior film, the widely derided Spider-Man 3. After years of working in the superhero genre, the deranged horror comedy felt like something of a homecoming for the director, a campy, brilliantly crafted genre romp closer to the vein of his Evil Dead films. In addition to critical acclaim, Drag Me to Hell tripled its $30 million budget at the box office, prompting whispers of a sequel, which sadly never materialized. But Raimi confirmed in a Reddit AMA earlier this year that Drag Me to Hell 2 is indeed in active development, and that his team at production company Ghost House Pictures are trying to come up with a story that would work. After all, the first film ended with embattled protagonist Christine Brown, played by Alison Lohman, being viciously dragged to hell, so would a sequel pick up that thread again? Perhaps with the title Drag Me From Hell, or tell a new story within the same universe. Either way, if Raimi's directing the sequel, it will sell itself. Number 9, Final Destination 6. The last Final Destination film, Final Destination 5, was released back in 2011, and it's honestly still surprising that New Line Cinema decided to put the franchise on ice and when they did. Though its ending cleverly circled back to the original movie with a certain finality, it still grossed almost $160 million on a $40 million budget, indicating that there was still plenty left in the tank for Hollywood to milk. In 2019, development of a sixth Final Destination was finally announced, with Saw writers Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan set to pen the script, described as a reimagining of the series. In early 2020, it was confirmed that the sequel wasn't a reboot and would focus on first responders, though at the onset of the pandemic, development began to stall. Last September, things seemed to pick back up with filmmakers Zach Lipovsky and Adam B. Stein, freaks, hired to direct a script co-written by Guy Busick, Scream 6, with the original story conceived by MCU Spider-Man director John Watts. Word again went quiet for a while until CinemaCon this past April, where Warner Bros. Formally announced Final Destination 6. Though the project is still in development, given both Warner Bros.' ongoing financial woes and horror's evergreen success at the box office, one suspects we won't have to wait too long to see the sequel materialise. Number 8. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. It's no secret that Guillermo del Toro's body of work is heavily influenced by one of his favourite works of fiction, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, enough that by his own admission he has a Frankenstein fetish to a degree that is unhealthy. For years, Del Toro has talked up helming his own Frankenstein adaptation, and though the Oscar-winning director regularly discusses projects which sadly never come to fruition, this one's actually about to happen. Following Del Toro's successful Oscar-winning collaboration with Netflix on his animated Pinocchio film, he was recently announced to be re-teaming with the streamer for his live-action Frankenstein movie. Better yet, there's one hell of an acting trio attached to star: Andrew Garfield, Oscar Isaac, and current reigning Scream Queen Mia Goth. While Frankenstein has arguably been adapted to death over the decades, a filmmaker as talented as Del Toro is sure to imprint his own distinct vision on the classic story and make it feel fresh once again. Get hyped. Number 7. Five Nights at Freddy's. The Five Nights at Freddy's video game franchise has been phenomenally popular for the better part of a decade, and it didn't take long for Hollywood to appreciate the potential of a movie adaptation. Warner Bros. Originally announced a Five Nights at Freddy movie way back in April 2015, and despite how much of a slam dunk idea it was, development stalled for several years, with the project passing into the hands of Blumhouse in 2017. By 2018, Chris Columbus, of Home Alone fame, was attached to direct for a 2020 release, but after the completed script was suddenly scrapped, word went quiet for several years. It wasn't until June 2020 that Blumhouse head Jason Blum confirmed the adaptation was still on the cards, and after years of waiting, last August, Blum revealed that shooting was imminently due to begin, with Jim Henson's Creature Shop creating the movie's murderous animatronics. With a script co-written by the series creator Scott Cawthon and directed by Emma Tammy of The Wind, shooting finally began earlier this year and was completed in April. The lead roles will be played by Josh Hutcherson, Elizabeth Lale, Piper Rubio and Matthew Lillard. Unlike every other movie on this list, it even has a trailer confirming its existence beyond any doubt, with the film set to release simultaneously in cinemas and on streaming on October 27th. Number 6. The Thing Part 2. John Carpenter's The Thing isn't just one of the greatest remakes of all time, horror or otherwise, it's straight up one of the best horror movies ever. Though there have been sporadic discussions about a sequel to the 1982 film, major headway has never been made, with fans instead having to settle for a 2002 video game, which served as a sequel to the movie, and also the mixed receptions to the 2011 prequel. In 2020, Universal and Blumhouse announced development of a remake or reboot, seemingly leaving any prospect of a sequel dead in the water. However, during a recent appearance at the Texas Frightmare Weekend horror convention, Carpenter spilled the beans that a sequel to The Thing may be in the works, albeit while admitting he was sworn to secrecy on the matter. Quite what form a Thing sequel would take is anyone's guess. Would it return to the cliffhanger ending of the original, bringing Kurt Russell and Keith David back into the fold, or take place in the present day with an entirely new cast? Also, with Carpenter more or less retired from filmmaking, it'd presumably require another director stepping up to the plate and filling his shoes. No easy feat there. Fans certainly have mixed feelings about the prospect of a Thing 2, especially if it unpicks the ambiguity of the original's ending and, most likely, ditches the first film's distinctive practical creature effects for digital ones, just as the prequel did. Number 5. Robert Eggers' Nosferatu. Robert Eggers is one of the most impressive rising filmmakers working in horror. His first two films, The Witch and The Lighthouse, immediately putting him firmly on the genre map. Eggers was first announced to be directing a remake of the legendary 1922 horror film Nosferatu way back in 2015, mere months after his debut The Witch was released, but ultimately decided to delay the project to work on both The Lighthouse and his most recent film, The Northman. By last year, originally attached stars Anya Taylor-Joy and Harry Styles both dropped out due to scheduling conflicts, seemingly leaving the project in peril. Not to be deterred any longer, though, Eggers forged ahead and by early 2023 had cast the entire movie, with the ensemble including the likes of Bill Skarsgård, playing the vampiric Count Orlok, Nicholas Hoult, Lily Rose Depp, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Emma Corrin, Willem Dafoe and Ralph Ineson. Though you might have missed it, Eggers' film had actually already been shot, with principal photography wrapping up this past May. Whatever happens, the movie is finally in the can, and fans should expect to see it sometime next year. Number 4. Alien Romulus. The Alien franchise hasn't known what to do with itself in recent years. Prequel project Prometheus was a box office hit despite mixed fan reception, while 2017's follow-up Alien Covenant performed far more modestly, both commercially and critically, leaving the series' future in doubt. A follow-up to Covenant, tentatively titled Alien Awakening, was promptly put on the back burner as Fox considered the next phase of the franchise, ultimately opting to focus on a TV series set to be overseen by Fargo's Noah Hawley. Yet development of the show stalled amid the pandemic, and to date its production status remains up in the air. Following their acquisition of Fox, Disney instead turned their attention back to a new Alien movie, and in March 2022, a standalone Alien film was announced to be directed by Fede Alvarez. Evil Dead, Don't Breathe. The movie, Alien Romulus, will star Kaylee Spaney and Isabella Merced. Though no plot information is yet available, it actually wrapped shooting mere weeks ago, with a release date set for August 16th of next year. Though the project was originally set to drop directly on streaming service Hulu, it was recently changed to a major theatrical release, suggesting that those in charge like what they've seen so far. Number 3. Return to Silent Hill. 2006's adaptation of iconic horror video game Silent Hill remains one of the best video game movies to date, no matter its noted flaws. A lackluster sequel, Silent Hill Revelation, was produced in 2012, which was both panned by critics and underperformed at the box office, seemingly killing the cinematic franchise dead. In the years that followed, however, Christoph Gans, director of the original 2006 film, doggedly pursued a third Silent Hill movie, and in January 2020 announced he was actively developing the project. In June 2022, Gantz announced that the script for a reboot based on the second Silent Hill game had been completed and had the blessing of the video game's publisher Konami, though despite Gantz's encouraging enthusiasm, many fans were skeptical that it would ever get before cameras. Even when the movie, titled Return to Silent Hill, was officially greenlit last October, it still felt like a too-good-to-be-true project that just wouldn't ever happen. But the film did indeed seem to begin shooting this past April, with Jeremy Irvine cast in the role of Silent Hill 2 protagonist James Sunderland. Number 2. Beetlejuice II. Even the most optimistic of Beetlejuice fans had surely given up on a sequel to Tim Burton's classic 1988 horror comedy ever actually getting made. After all, various attempts to produce Beetlejuice 2 have been mounted over the last 30 plus years, with the infamous Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian concept, which is exactly what it sounds like, being the only one to gain any serious traction. That is, until now. Even with Warner Brothers officially announcing that Beetlejuice 2 had been shelved back in 2019, they resurrected the project in early 2022. Though Burton initially denied any involvement, by early 2023 he was confirmed to be directing, with his Wednesday star Jenna Ortega set to play the daughter of the original film's protagonist, Lydia Dietz, played by a returning Winona Ryder. In terms of other returning cast members, Michael Keaton is of course back as Beetlejuice, with Catherine O'Hara returning to fill her role, and new cast will be rounded out by Justin Theroux, Monica Bellucci, and Willem Dafoe. The film is currently shooting with a September 6th release date set for next year, and no matter how it turns out, the fact that Burton finally got the damn thing made after 35 years feels like closure in its own right. Number 1. Tusks. Here's a sequel few thought they'd ever hear serious discussions about. Kevin Smith's deeply twisted horror comedy Tusk, about a podcaster, played by Justin Long, who ends up kidnapped by a deranged sailor and sewn into a walrus costume made of human skin, truly felt like a one-and-done experiment for the Clerks filmmaker. Between the mixed critical reviews and the lackluster box office, there was little reason to believe that Smith would ever return to this well. Of course, Smith loves to toss around sequel ideas to basically all of his movies, and in 2020 floated the prospect of a sequel in which Long's character returns to human form to become the new antagonist in a film called Tusks. Word went quiet for a couple of years until Long was doing press for his new horror film Barbarian last year, where he revealed that Smith had contacted him and original Tusk co-stars Genesis Rodriguez and Haley Joel Osment about reprising their roles for a sequel. Smith confirmed the news himself on his Fat Man Beyond podcast that very week, and though it remains to be seen when Tusks will actually go before cameras, after all, he's always got at least few sequel projects on the go, he certainly seems enthusiastic about making it happen soon. That's everything we have so far for this list. If there's anything you think we missed, let us know. What do you really feel should get a sequel, no matter how long we've been waiting for it? You let us know. And everyone, you look after yourself. As always, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and just generally be positive, eh? I've been Sean for What Culture Horror. Remember, you can follow What Culture Horror over on Twitter, at What Culture Horror. And you can, of course, follow myself on Twitter and Blue Sky at Sean Ferrick as well. Until I'm talking to you again, make sure that you look after yourselves, be kind, and you know what? Yous are all bleeding legends.